Okay. It is an honor to introduce Tom Thorfinnson, who is the Chief Strategic Officer for Rotary International and a member of the Rotary Club of Eden Prairie Noon in Minnesota. Tom and his team work with Rotary staff and members to develop and implement organization-wide strategy and set and measure goals. And that's really going to be a big theme for today's assembly. The team provides research, evaluation, business information, and project management, and encourages creative thinking and innovation. Tom graduated from St. Olaf College in Northfield, Minnesota, with a degree in mathematics and economics. He also has a law degree from Marquette University Law School in Milwaukee. He's been a Rotarian since 1980, and he has served Rotary as a director and as a foundation trustee and vice chair. He is a level 2 major donor of the Rotary Foundation. And just a very brief note, I had a chance to meet Tom at a training at Rotary International headquarters because we had a flood in Houston and our zone training had to be canceled and moved. So it was great that Tom and others who work in the Rotary International office building were able to come down from their offices, train us, and go back to work. It was fantastic. So with that, let's give a great Rotary welcome to Tom Thorfinnson.
Good morning, everyone. Good to be with you. One of my favorite states to visit is New Mexico. So it's not the best way for my mind to visit, but so here we are in the context of COVID. I'm going to be sharing my screen. I've got a PowerPoint that I work from, but it's just good to be with everyone. Thank you, Jeff, for the introduction. Good to see you, Bob. I wish you all the best of luck as we move forward. I will tell you that I heard many of you describe how long you've been in Rotary, maybe the positions you've had. I've been there, I've done that. I think I've had almost every position that there is in Rotary over the years. And somehow a few years ago, I switched over from being a Rotarian and a volunteer to being a Rotarian and a staff member. And there aren't too many of us in life that suddenly find ourselves in a position where you're getting paid to do what you're passionate about and love doing. So I am the lucky one, so to speak. So I'm going to be sharing my screen. Give you a minute while I set that up. All right, hopefully you can see this. This shouldn't be a surprise to most of you. Those of you that have been in Rotary a year or less, maybe haven't seen our vision statement. I would hope that otherwise this statement has been circulated. It really is a good statement for us as an organization. A couple of things unique about this vision statement. You don't see the word Rotary or Rotarian in this vision statement. And I think you need to keep that in mind. Keep it in mind in the context of your club, in the context of your district and your activities. This isn't just about making Rotary better. It's about really contributing in a valuable way to the triad that you see at the bottom, really helping create lasting change globally in our own communities, but also in ourselves. And when we do that, we want to do it in a way that it isn't just focused on having Rotarians help us or Rotarians and Rotaractors. There are all sorts of people in this world that want to help, that we want to unite with to help create lasting change. So my presentation is going to be focused on how you can align your team towards collectively moving forward as an organization. Really, it's all about creating lasting change. And as I indicated, it isn't just change from a perspective of service. It's a change in terms of how we as individuals grow in our roles as volunteers, but also as human beings and members of a civil society. So I came into this job 4.5 years ago, was asked to, primarily I took this job to lead the charge in developing a new strategy. And you see before you 4 priorities, which are the new priorities for our organization moving forward. This is a corporate plan That is, it's for Rotary International and the Rotary Foundation on a global basis, but there are many aspects of what is our new action plan, as we call it, that can be incorporated into your club, into your activities at a district level, and really in doing the same thing in terms of trying to accomplish the vision that I laid out for you. I'm going to go through the 4 priorities, but do it in the context of how they can be utilized at your club level, at your district level, and also give you the concepts behind why this is an important priority for us as an organization. So here you see, when we started this process 4 years ago, one of the things we did in a very unique way is ask a series of questions of our Rotarians, of Rotaractors, of alumni of the Rotary programs, and also a group of young professionals. We basically bought an email list of the kind of people we want to attract into the organization. And we didn't ask them about Rotary. We asked them if they were a member of what would be an ideal membership organization. What would it look like to them? What would it feel like? We asked questions about the makeup of that organization. We had, as an example, we had 30 pictures of 30 individuals, very diverse set of individuals. And we asked people to pick 5 photos from those 30 that would represent to them an ideal mix of a club that they would be a part of. And that gave us a tremendous insight into what Rotarians currently look for, but also what our Rotaractors look for, what our alumni, and alumni, of course, are people that have benefited from the programs of Rotary, and then the list that we bought. We took this survey and we pushed it out to every email address we had. I'm talking over 1 million email addresses. And so we had a strong response rate. These are dependable figures. They are 4 years old now, to be honest. We have updated them somewhat. But one of the questions we asked was causes. So in the context of this first priority, increasing our impact, what are the causes that are most important to Rotarians? Now, these are global figures, but I will tell you, in the United States, we fall in line almost identically with how you see them here. So the number 1 cause 4 years ago among Rotarians, Rotaractors, alumni, and even young professionals was basic education and literacy. That was the most important cause. But I want you to see environment in this. And we have asked questions somewhat like this for the last 15 years, and the environment has popped up now for the first time 4 years ago, and it has moved up on the list from where it is here. In the context of Rotarians, it's moved up to number 3 in our latest survey. And it's even higher with Rotaractors, alumni. And of course, Rotarians generally are older than the people in the other 3 categories that you see here. So keep that in mind. From a club-based perspective, what's the interest of your members? What's the interest of your community in causes? And are you focused on the causes that are really of most interest to the people that are in your club, but also those that might be willing to help or might be willing to join your club? So here's just quick bullets to keep in mind. Things that you can do at a club level that will align your club, your district in a common direction and help incorporate this particular priority into what you might want to be doing moving forward. And so obviously develop a strategy, sit down, brainstorm. It's really important that you conduct a community assessment. Don't just assume that basic education is the most important cause in your community or a cause that your own Rotarians want to support. Sit down with civic leaders, sit down with the principals, sit down with people from community-based organizations and ask where the greatest needs are. One of the things that's really important from our research is a need to focus your efforts. We try too often to do too many things, spread ourselves too thin, and as a result, we really don't have any impact whatsoever. We're doing things that feel good, but not necessarily doing things that have real impact and actually lead to lasting change. And I'll tell you, why is this important? Our research has told us that the younger you are, the more important impact is. For many of us, my generation, we're used to giving to the United Way approach, giving money to the Rotary Foundation, and assuming that our leaders are making the right choices in terms of how we spend those dollars relative to addressing needs and causes. But the next generation of leaders, they want evidence that what you're doing as an organization is actually creating lasting change. Is there impact data that evidences that you're actually addressing literacy in your communities? So the final point, maybe it's an obvious one, but you need to celebrate the successes. It's really important that you communicate what you are doing and get the word out. That will increase interest in the organization, whether it's your club, whether it's your district, or whether it's Rotary International. So the second priority that we developed is expand our reach. And this focuses to some extent on the traditional membership development, but it recognizes that our traditional method of bringing people in the organization needs to be enhanced. And it isn't just about bringing people in the door. So here's some data for you. Somewhat shocking to many of us. Before COVID, the previous 10 years, we had 1.387 million people join Rotary. But in that same time frame, we had 1.436 million Rotarians leave the organization. So what you can see is more than 10%, almost 12% of our membership base is leaving every year. That might not be satisfactory to you if you're in business and you're losing 12% of your customers every year. How would you address it? How do you move that forward? So keep that in mind as we talk about the next priority after this. But it's important from a perspective of what we're doing today. We're doing a really good job when it gets right down to it of bringing people in the door. But what we're not doing is hanging on to those people. And let me give you a few other things to give you a sense of it. But here are things you can do at a club-based level to actually expand your reach. An important thing is to think about other groups, organizations in your community that you can join forces with. Maybe in informal ways, maybe it's a social event, maybe it's addressing a need, maybe it's joining forces in the context of bringing awareness within your community to needs. And think outside of the traditions. As an organization today, we struggle, particularly in the United States, with diversity in our membership. So maybe it's time for us to reach out to more diverse organizations to join forces with. To not just think of another civic organization, but think of alumni associations. Think of groups that are trying to drive specifically towards a cause, because we realize from that first priority that impact is more important than maybe we thought. So there are an awful lot of tools. So I have a large dog, and I'm going to take a minute and pause and put my dog in a cage. I apologize. So give me a minute. All right, I apologize. There are advantages and disadvantages to appearing virtually. You didn't have to pay me to fly in. I didn't have to spend a day traveling, but occasionally our dog And when she barks like this, it's really my wife's dog. But in any case, she acts up, so I apologize. So we have an awful lot of tools online through my Rotary, through our website, tools to help you relative to membership development. There's learning modules you can go through. There's best practices. There's examples of creative ways to attract people into your club or to form new clubs. And one of the things that's really important in the context of expanding your reach is to tell the stories of the Rotary experience. And not just tell them inside the club, but look for opportunities to tell those stories externally, whether it's blogs, whether it's reaching out through other social media avenues, whether it's at events, whatever it might be. So the next priority is enhanced participant engagement. And I will tell you that I was part of the strategic planning committee for Rotary International 10 years ago when we developed the prior strategic plan. And we focused on supporting clubs in that plan. We didn't focus with that plan on the individuals. And that's probably the single biggest mistake that we made in the prior plan. Understand on the data that you saw previously that more, that 12% of the people that join are leaving the organization every year. And it's a significant turnaround. And we can't just focus as an organization on supporting the clubs. We need to focus on the individuals that are part of the Rotary experience. And we have to increase their engagement with the Rotary. You notice we use the word participant rather than Rotarians. And that's critical. What I would like you to imagine is a target out in front of you. And at the center of that target is a core group of Rotarians that bleed Rotary. So I'm in that circle. Maybe you should never want to get that far into Rotary and be at that core where you bleed Rotary. But there are concentric circles in that target of individuals that have participated in the Rotary experience, that have had an amazing experience at one point in time. And they may be Rotarians that just attend meetings, and their most important part of engagement is the friendship and the fellowship that they've established through membership in that club. But outside of that are the Rotaractors. And maybe outside of that circle are youth exchange students or parents of youth exchange students. And outside of that are people that maybe just have participated in a volunteer event that you've held. Think of all of those individuals that have come into contact with your club as participants in the Rotary experience. Stay in contact with them. Keep them engaged. Keep giving them opportunities to engage further. That will drive our vision statement forward because we will be uniting people towards creating lasting change, but it'll also bring those people closer to your club and maybe lead to an increase in membership. We took what was the membership category as a priority and we split it into two priorities. One, expanding our reach, bringing more closer, but second is engaging those people to keep them involved with the Rotary experience. So that's what this priority is all about, engagement. So here's some statistics. This is a recent survey that was completed less than a year ago, and it asked why people join. What's interesting is global service has increased significantly over the last 3 years as more and more important to the people that join Rotary. It used to be almost equally broken down between local service and personal growth, which could be networking, could be mentorship, etc. But global service is starting to become more important. That might not be the case in your club, but do you know why people are joining? And it's important that we know that, because if we're going to continue to engage them and hang on to them, this information is critical for you. So this is a global analysis of membership in Rotary over the last 5 years. And what it is putting our members into categories, classes of when you joined Rotary. So the people that are in their first year total about 70,000 on average over the last 5 years. And the people in their second year in Rotary, that's the biggest group. It's 110,000 people. Makes sense. It's almost 10%. It's almost the number that we talked about in terms of people that joined in the last 10 years. But what you see is after the second year, the number of people that are in their third year in Rotary is significantly less than the number that were in their second year. So in this time frame, in the second and third year, this is when you're most likely to lose your members. And so focusing particularly on people while they're in their second year before they get to their third year or fourth year is really critical in the context of engagement. What I want to show you now is Western Europe as opposed to this global average. And I will tell you the United States is very similar to the global average, but here is Western Europe. Look how much better Western Europe is at hanging on to its members. Global versus Western Europe. Our current president of Rotary, Holger Knock from Germany, talks about looking at your members as lifelong friends, picking individuals to join your club that are going to be your friends for life, and caring for those individuals. And it's as simple as that. I mean, I can make it really complicated. I can talk about causes. I can talk about why people join, but that connection, that caring, that friendship is critical to hanging on to those members. And if your team is on board with this, then you're going to line your members towards moving your club forward in a good way. Now, this is just a brief survey that was done in terms of satisfaction right now in the context of the pandemic. We had a significant number of respondents to this. So this is a current survey from December of last year. So it's less than 5 months old. And it tells us that there's about 10% of our membership that is just barely satisfied with Rotary. Not a surprise. In fact, somewhere in that range, they're telling us that they're likely to leave in the next year, 10%. Now, here's the reasons why, when asked why they might leave. They were allowed to pick multiple choices, not just one. Not one reason why I might leave, but what are some of the reasons why you might leave in the next year? And you can see that cost and time are significant. The biggest, of course, is over on the right side of the screen. It's the virtual meeting issue. But how many of you are in virtual meetings right now and charging less than normal for your dues? So it's a double-edged sword. As you come out of virtual meetings and you start charging more, are you going to lose them because of cost, because of time? Realize that cost and time are not the reason why people leave. If they're getting value, then they're happy to spend the time and they're happy to spend the money. So I don't even like the fact that cost and time are in this survey questions. The two in the middle deal with service. Your club is not doing enough, or your club is not having enough of an impact. If you put those two together, realize what we're talking about. We're now talking about potentially 70%. So one of the things you can do in the context of engagement in the coming year, particularly as you look at moving away from maybe virtual meetings, is focus on that impact. Focus on making sure that what you're doing in terms of service is impactful, that you're doing just a few things really well, that you're asking your members what they think we need to be doing in our club and community, and you're asking community leaders about that. So the final priority is increasing our ability to adapt. I like this quote from Winston Churchill. I wouldn't call the pandemic a good crisis, but it is a good opportunity for us to pivot, to really change who we are in the context of how we deliver value We have clubs today. We have a new club that's formed, and their primary method of communicating to their members is WhatsApp. We have clubs today that are meeting in a hybrid formation, and I suspect you have clubs within your district doing the same. Clubs that have an opportunity for their members to join in person, but also to join that same meeting virtually. That's pivoting. That's maybe addressing that cost issue, while at the same time recognizing the comfort or discomfort of some of the members right now in terms of meeting in person. Here's some of the things you can do at the club level. Really important. It ties back to strategy, but can you brainstorm? Can you sit down with your members and just talk about new things that your club should be looking at doing? New things add excitement. You know, everybody's questioning, is it going to work? Is it going to fail? Is this going to be a success? It gets people engaged. And you know what? If you innovate and you don't invest a lot, it can be a really fun experience for a club. And it gives you an opportunity to look at new ways in which you address your core values in your club. And so you can see from this list some of the things you at the club level could be doing. So before I finish, you know, I want to bring it back to our core values. And, you know, I can give you all this data. I can talk to you about globally what's happening and what we're thinking and where the future may lie. And you can take it and you can apply it. And I think there's tremendous value in doing it. But what's really important is not losing sight of the core values. So I have here a cup of coffee because it reminds me of a story from my club. Club I'm in, the Eden Prairie Noon Club in Minnesota, club I helped form. It's about 11 years old. One of the people I invited to join the club is a guy named Larry Olson. And I first met Larry on the softball field. We weren't players, we were coaches. We had daughters and we'd signed our daughters up for T-ball. And the dads that had boys tended to gravitate towards coaching the baseball teams. And those of us that didn't have any boys kind of ended up coaching the girls. Now that's changed a lot because there's a lot of women today that play softball. But back in those days, I met Larry coaching our two daughters. And I coached with Larry for a number of years. And I will tell you, I was a better coach than Larry. And I will also tell you that my daughter was a better athlete than Larry's daughter. But despite that, Larry tolerated us and we became good friends. Larry was in the coffee business, wholesale coffee business. And when I started the club, helped start the club, I invited Larry to join. And he was a charter member of the club. And every event we had, Larry brought the coffee. And in fact, at district conferences, he took care of the entire cost of the coffee, which is not an insignificant thing. And Larry was a great Rotarian. While I was a director, Larry developed cancer, terminal pancreatic cancer. And Larry had a very good friend that was in the club, a guy named Jim Lindstrom. And Jim set up two things. He set up a system so that every Wednesday, someone from our club would go over to Larry and Linda's house and deliver a hot meal for 4 people. And if they wanted us to stay, we'd stay and have dinner with them. And if they didn't, we left them the meals and they had some leftovers. And then every day that Larry was in the hospital, Jim set up a schedule and someone from our club visited Larry in person in the hospital. And when Larry passed away, every single person from our club, except for me, attended the funeral. And you know what? I was away on a Rotary trip. I was director at the time and I was speaking somewhere and I missed Larry's funeral. At our core, that's what Rotary does. Larry contributed. He was a key member of our club, but when he was down, we were picking him up. When Larry passed away, we created a fund in Larry's honor, and it still is there in our club, and it's being used every year to award a scholarship at the high school level in Larry's honor. At the core of what we are, it's those 5 core values: fellowship, leadership, integrity, diversity, and service. But in reality, there's 2 of them that dominate. And it's an amazing magic that happens when you have good service and good fellowship, when you have friends for life that join forces to do good, impactful good within a community. So this is what we're about. We're driving the organization forward towards creating lasting change. I've given you a few thoughts, a few ideas, but you know better than I do what you need in your community. With that, I am gonna stop sharing my screen. I don't know what the plans are in terms of whether you want to ask questions. I'll turn it back to Jeff, and you tell me what you'd like to see happen. I'm available, so.
No, this is great. We've got about 20 minutes on the agenda for questions. And when everyone introduced themselves, I didn't hear a lot of feedback. We just heard Tom's dog for that one moment. We can try just having people unmute and ask questions. And if we hear any feedback, we'll try to address it. I think would be more interactive than if we used a chat. So if you have any questions for Tom, please go ahead and unmute and ask your questions, please.
Yes, hello, this is Debbie Cox. And as I listen to the introductions of our 43 members and how many years they were in Rotary, I asked myself the question, why are we having trouble recruiting young members to join Rotary? Because many of our current members were definitely young when they joined. So I'd like to ask Tom what ideas he has for reaching the younger people and getting them interested in Rotary.
Yeah, it's a good question. So number one, the impact item that I highlighted is really important. Recognizing in particular, literacy is probably a cause that's really important. Noting that the next generation of leaders wants to see impact. Again, and there's a phrase that's being used among my staff, and the phrase is this: doing good isn't good enough. Today, it isn't a matter of just doing something that feels good to us. Today, it's extremely important that what we do actually results in the lasting change. And what's necessary for that may sound difficult, but I don't think it really is. If you're going to take on literacy as an example, how do you know that what you're doing is actually moving the needle? So you need baseline data. You need to know, what's going on. And it's not that hard to reach out to the kindergarten teachers and find out. It's not that hard to talk to the principals and the community leaders. And, we have an innovative partnership we have been working on for a little while relative to literacy. And I heard some data that I had never heard before, that the average child born into poverty in the United States today is exposed to 30 million fewer words by the age of 5 than a child born into a family above the poverty line. And you can imagine what that does to brain development. And so that's the kind of thing that we can look at, we can start addressing, and maybe that attracts the next generation. The other thing I want to talk about in that context of the next generation is those questions we asked about the ideal organization. I mentioned the pictures. I got to tell you, we have 2 daughters that are in their mid-30s. In that generation, when they picked from those 30 photos, they picked a tremendously diverse group. There was one white male in the group of 5 top photos. There were more women than men. Only 2 white people. That is the group that my daughters want to join. They don't want to be a part of a group that is not diverse. 2 things, they're used to it. But the second thing, they recognize that people that come from diverse backgrounds bring diverse experience to the table. And they want to be a part of that. At the opposite side of the spectrum, the Rotarians picked a far less diverse group of photos. So you're facing a hurdle if you're walking a young person into a club that's filled with people that look like me. And maybe just recognizing that. It may mean that you need to form a new club with younger people. It may mean you need to bring in 8 or 10 people that are young at the same time so that there is a greater comfort level. You just can't wave a wand and think that a 35-year-old is going to want to join a club when what they're walking into isn't necessarily what they would consider to be the ideal mix. And that isn't discriminatory. It's just the basic facts of what we're dealing with. So, long answer, I apologize. You can see I'm immersed in this stuff, so.
Tom, I have a question.
Sure.
What environmental projects have you seen work well in Rotary clubs?
Yeah, it's going to be a good question. Obviously, the area of focus is new to us. It won't be launched till July 1. We certainly have had environmental projects done through the global grant process in the past, but they have been inside of other areas of focus. So cleaning up filthy, dirty water sources, streams, etc. What I think we're going to see initially that's probably the most significant areas in the environment will be tree planting, but I think our requirements are going to require some guarantees in terms of sustainability, that you're going to be planting in a situation where there really is going to be some kind of forestation plan that's going to assure that the trees will be maintained, that they will be in an area where they will be allowed to grow and continue. But yeah, we are just in the process of hiring the subject matter expert that will oversee that area of focus. And so we don't even have her or him in that position yet. So we were hopeful that we'd have the position filled by now, but we're being kind of particular. We really want somebody that knows their stuff. And I will say, one of the issues with the environment is if we're going to take it on, we have to walk the walk now. And it means at some of our events that we stop using bottled water or whatever it might be, all those other pieces, because you can't sit there and try to tout this as a new area that we're engaging in and then not live those values, so to speak. So.
Rachel, why don't you go ahead and ask your question, please?
Well, I'm just kind of trying to process some things that I've observed in working with young people in my profession. And the first question that just added, I think even just small tweaks like Tom was referring to as far as events, but also just small tweaks how we do business. Like, does our club have a Twitter account? I don't know how to do Twitter. I'm an old lady, but like, I know that people of the younger generation gravitate more towards different social media outlets than I do with Facebook. I know that when I was visiting the Rotary Club a year ago, something was wrong with the card reader and I had to write a check to pay for lunch. And I thought, well, where's Venmo? Like, can I just do something and pay for it that way? So like, maybe there's just small things that clubs can look at regarding business practices or behaviors or just assumptions about what is appealing, what comes naturally to the younger generation.
Yeah, there's no question. You know, one of the things that are always the issue is the wrappings that we put around the product. And if we wrap our product with things that make it look old and not relevant, not current, is certainly an issue. What's at the core of our product is far more important, but if we walk into a club meeting and there's a lot of pomp and circumstance and there's a lot of hierarchy and there's a lot of this, well, I'm sorry, you have to talk to this committee and you need to do this and you need to do that, you're headed down that same path. So your comment is right on target. It's part of what we need to be focusing on. And however, if you're delivering value, real impactful stuff, you can kind of get around a lot of those things. Yeah, a bit of a challenge, no question about it. Next question. I see Paula's got her hand up.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for the presentation. I've been in Rotary about 6 years, and, I joined when I was 50, or in my 50s, because I really didn't know about it in my 30s. I might have joined if I would have, but I think for a lot of people in that age, they're also very busy with family and career, and not as apprised of it. So the things I've noticed, because I really love Rotary. I didn't even know how you're supposed to act when you join. So, and I think of today, I learned more by going to board meetings and learning from everyone else. But when I think of younger members, I don't know where we find the way to share what Rotary is about without being too much pomp and circumstance and balancing it. And also, is there a way that, Tom, do you have suggestions about with first and second year members? Have you seen clubs do things like have people be be beyond the sponsor, other people kind of shadow with them so they stay engaged? Or what do you do when you have younger members and you want to make sure you've onboarded them well?
Yeah, so two things before we dive into the younger members again. Recognize what you represent when you join. Our sweet spot right now is actually attracting people in their 50s. Do not ignore that fact. People who are approaching retirement. The kids are out of the house now. I don't have that responsibility. I have time. Do not ignore that group. That's the group we have better connections with. That's the groups we can bring in the door more easily, and they're going to be more comfortable. But we still need and really want to attract that younger group. Don't get me wrong about that. And yes, I tell you what we're doing now is we're starting to develop detailed analysis of the personas in Rotary. So looking at that 30-year-old, looking at that 40-year-old and the different groups and saying, okay, what does the 30-year-old want versus the 40-year-old versus the 55-year-old, whatever it might be. And then can we as an organization at the top supplement whatever you're doing at the club level to deliver value to those individual personas? So the 25-year-old, the 30-year-old, what they want is they want hands-on volunteer experiences that are relatively short in commitment. I mean, meaningful stuff. That's just hard to find. But they do want to do something meaningful, but they're not going to make a lifetime commitment. They're not going to take something on that says, I'm going to, for the next 3 years, going to be doing X, Y, Z. They also want mentorship. And that's the sweet spot right now. But do they want a 65-year-old retired attorney mentoring them, or do they want, if they're a young attorney, they may want that 50-year-old. So you have to be careful that maybe, do you even have that person? Stay away maybe from the professions unless you have a really significant size club and you can deliver and make the fit happen. Otherwise, it's just crossing that bridge of friendship between a 53-year-old and a 36-year-old. You can be a mentor without them even knowing you're being a mentor. And that's critical. As the persona progresses, as the 30-year-old becomes the 40-year-old, they still want that same kind of service to some extent, but they want a different kind of networking. They don't need a mentor, they need doors open to expand their business. And they're looking for those things. And you can guess the other ages, what we might be looking for. I'm giving you kind of the North American spin on it, so you can trust it generally that in the US and Canada, this is the kind of thing that our personas are wanting. We hope to move the organization to a point where digitally we deliver some of that value based on personas. We got a ways to go, believe me. But that's in our 5-year roadmap of some of the stuff we're trying to put together to supplement what I sometimes talk about is maybe a club experience for somebody is a B- experience. It's not an A+, but they're in there. And can we, as an organization at the corporate level, deliver just enough extra to move it from a B- to a B+ or an A-? Supplement what you get from a club. And think of it not so much as, you know, Rotary International doing this, but when I showed you the data about the importance of global service, that's where Rotary can step in and deliver that extra boost to move it up. Maybe somebody's interested in the environment on a global basis. Joining SRAG, the Environmental Rotary Action Group, that's wants to join together with other people that are interested in addressing the environment, joining forces with those other Rotarians, other participants to help move the needle. That's the piece that maybe your club could never deliver by itself, but having that person join that international association of individuals that are interested in the environment, boom. Water and sanitation. I've been an active member of the Water and Sanitation Action Group for 25 years. My first trip to Haiti on a water project headed me down that path. And it's been a great supplement to me when, you know, I couldn't really be very active in my club.
So we have a few participants who have raised their hands, and this may take us to 9:15. So let's have Arturo and then Pam and then Dan, please.
Thank you, Jeff. Good morning, Tom. Thank you so much for being with us today. I have a quick question. I joined Rotary recently, about 4 years ago. I could say that I'm a very young Rotarian. And I asked this question before, but the response I got was very blurb. I know we don't have the answer. But one of the questions that the new generations are asking is what's going to happen when polio is controlled? What is going to be the next big initiative? Or is there going to be a task force to identify that area or that project?
Yeah, it's a great question. And you know, it's funny, I was on the board of directors in 2009 through 2011. And as I was getting ready to serve on the board, I actually thought I might be on the board when we started picking the next corporate program 10 years ago. I thought we were that close. It's a little frustrating where we are. But I will tell you what we're doing. Number one, we have a set of very specific rules, so to speak, process that we'll follow. And I'm actually in charge of that step-by-step process. We have defined the criteria that we'll want to use to select the next corporate program. One of the things that we're doing is reaching out to our current partners relative to polio eradication. I've made a trip to CDC and the Gates before the pandemic, obviously, to sit down with them and talk through. I mean, they're significant partners. We don't necessarily think that we absolutely have to head down a path with the next corporate program that engages those same partners. But when you're a full partner with WHO and CDC and the Gates Foundation and UNICEF, you don't necessarily want to walk away from that. We get $100 million a year from Gates. I'm in negotiation right now to try to get some more money relative to COVID from Gates. No guarantee we'll get it. But the other thing we're doing is we've established a new grant model called Programs of Scale. And the intent of that model is to give us some activities at scale that could be the beginning of the next corporate programs. It gives us, so there's an initiative relative to malaria that we're funding to the tune of about a $4 million initiative in Zambia. We have a malnutrition initiative in Ethiopia that's a $30 million initiative where Rotary has $2.5 million in the pot. But we have a donor that is matching that, giving us another $2.5 million. And then we've been able to get other donors to join us on those initiatives. And that's the kind of stuff we need to do. We need to experiment at scale, maybe within each area of focus, so that maybe water and sanitation is the next major corporate program, or maybe it is another disease, or maybe but we aren't doing much at scale. You can't go from $70,000 projects to 150 million a year overnight. We need some things that are larger scale right now. And will they be things that people are interested in, that drives donations, that moves the needle and creates some lasting change? So yeah, long answer again. You can see I'm immersed in a lot of this stuff.
No. It's great. It's better than I got last time. Last time was like, well, we're not looking into that. But, you know, in my previous life, I worked for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and we worked with Gates and the Carlos Slim, and we got about $100 million for projects. But congratulations on your doing that. I think the more that we can spread it out, it's going to be the better. Thank you, Tom.
Yeah.
So we will take,
We're certainly thinking about it. Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
no, go ahead, Tom, sorry.
I was just going to say, we're certainly thinking about what's coming after polio and trying to position ourselves. I wish we'd started 10 years ago, to be honest.
So we are going to embrace our ability to adapt and take a few more questions and adjust our agenda accordingly. So we'll have Pam and then Dan. Pam, go ahead.
Thank you. On your comment on walking the walk, I think it's important for Rotary to offer the magazine digitally first rather than in print, because in our case, I joined Rotary and did not get the magazine for several months. Then I got the magazine. Then I tried to figure out how to get it digitally and wasn't able to figure that out. And meanwhile, my husband joined Rotary, and now we get 2 copies of the magazine. And I finally figured out how to get it digitally. And I was told that they can't change it to digital until July. And this was months ago. Meanwhile, my children who are in their 30s are disgusted to see these 2 magazines sitting at our house every month, because they're the only magazines we get. We get everything else digitally. And when I told my daughter I'm trying, she said, well, they should make it easier. So that's a comment from a young person on us not walking the walk in Rotary about the environment. Just a comment.
Yeah, that's a good comment. And you can imagine the bureaucracy that we have at Rotary, and I mean that, you know, in all directions. It's not necessarily a surprise to anyone 120 years or 115 years being around. But the communications team is probably one of the best, and I will communicate to them about the magazine issue, and they really are concerned about us doing the right thing on these things. I'll pass the message on, and next.
So perhaps having it digitally first, and then you have to.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Yeah.
Thank you, Pam. Dan?
Thanks.
Yeah, Tom, in our district, we have a large number of clubs that are in small and medium-sized towns that are based on farming, ranching, natural resources, recreation. The thing we're seeing is the mom and pop businesses are disappearing. And these corporations are coming in like Dollar General and those type stores. And it seems to be their policy that a manager stays no more than a year before they're transferred out. And that has always been kind of a prime recruiting area, the leaders of the businesses in the community. And so, if you do what you've always done, you're going to get what you always got. We're not getting what we always got.
Yeah.
So ideas in dealing with the more corporate world, or changing our focus to go more to community activists, or what kinds of ideas are there?
Yeah, tough question. I will say that we're really trying to be creative right now. You may have a major employer in that town that's pretty much the only one of significance. We're starting to look at forming clubs in those entities inside the corporation, among the people that are employees of the company, and then focusing on what their interests are in terms of service. And it's probably tied to what the corporation's doing. But we're starting different approaches, different takes on it. Certainly opening up the virtual nature of how a club meets can be helpful. We have an environmental club that's been formed that does not meet in person, and it has members from 20 different countries in that club right now. And that could be helpful, but that can be difficult because you saw on the survey results that local service remains really important in getting that to happen. I think part of it is breaking away from this focus that people have to join and thinking about how can they help you in what you're doing and what you're trying to drive in terms of service. That is expanding our reach, recognizing that maybe a club of 18 is where you're at, but maybe on service projects, on events that you have a core group of 50 that show up and help, and you start to develop what I consider a different concentric circle that's larger, that's maybe not as dedicated at its core, but supports that smaller club. And that's part of the reason we built into the model this idea of expanding our reach and looking outside of our traditional, you have to be a member kind of approach to things, to driving change and making a difference in a community. But yeah, it's a real struggle.
Well, thank you so much for your presentation and for your questions. Before we close, I'm wondering if we have any closing comments from our governor line, Sunny, Bob, John, Richard, anything to close this discussion out?
I'd like to say something, Jeff.
Please.
Hi, Tom. Thank you so much
Thanks,
for
Sunny.
being here. This has been extremely useful in having us think about things in a somewhat different way and offering some avenues for action that may not yet have occurred to us. I can see real lasting change coming out of this morning's session, and we really appreciate you. Thanks so much.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
I just want to recognize the dedication of everyone. I too appreciate you taking a Saturday morning. Those are precious moments for all of us, and it makes a difference in the world for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Jeff, could we take a picture before Tom leaves so we can have everybody in?
Yes.
Unfortunately, I'm not on my computer, so if, I don't know if Eric or you or somebody can take it, that'll be
Jen,
awesome.
can you go ahead and do the pictures?
Thank you.
Give us 1 minute. Jen, go ahead and unmute and direct us, please.
Yep. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm on page 1. So if everybody can turn their cameras on. Okay, and smile and look at the camera. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Smile. That's page 1. And now page 2. 3, 2, 1. Smile. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you, everyone. And again, Tom, thank you so much. A big Rotary Zoom round of applause.
Thanks, everyone. Good to see you.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Till
Okay,
next
before
time.
we take our break, Martine, are you with us? Martine? Oh, you're on. You're just on mute. Can you unmute and then give your talk?
Sorry, Jeff. I was doing some final touches on my presentation. I'm here and I'm ready whenever you tell me I'm ready.
Let's do it now.
Do it now, Jeff? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, let me. Okay, I am going to share my presentation. I'll share the screen, see if I can do that. Can you all see it?
Yes.
Okay, first, I would like to thank Governor Sunny and Governor Bob for allowing me to make this quick presentation and more of a call for action. We recently had a meeting where we had the vice president of our division meet with their leadership group of our district to explain the current situation of our blood supply. As you may or may not know, I'm a Rotarian from El Paso, Camino Real, but I'm also the blood drive coordinator, the blood drive donor recruitment manager for El Paso and Southern New Mexico. So I'm in charge of organizing the blood drives in this area. And so I'm wearing my Vitalin shirt as well as my Rotary shirt together. Vitalins, in case you may not know, is former United Blood Services. Many of you might recognize United Blood Services for 45 years. We recently changed our name and our logo to Vitalent. We're the same organization with the same mission. And so the presentation today is about a proposal to our district for a district-wide blood drive. And so first, I would like to read our purpose. Vitalent exists to help people realize their life-transforming potential by offering convenient blood donation opportunities and sharing our expertise in transfusion medicine. You are Vitalent. At Vitalent, we have thousands of volunteers who join us every day to ensure a safe blood supply is always available for patients who need it. Join us. We can make many tomorrows happen for many people. The ways to do it is give blood, host a blood drive, volunteer as a coordinator or serve on the blood drive committee, volunteer at our donation center, or help with other tasks. Why we wanted a challenge. So just some quick facts about what's happening in our area. Every 2 seconds, someone in the United States needs blood. It's the blood on the shelves that saves lives during emergency. After you donate blood, it takes 24 to 48 hours to have that unit of blood ready. We have to test it, we have to label it, we have to process it and distribute it. But it's the blood on the shelves that it saves the lives in the event of an emergency. The current situation is that not hundreds, but thousands of blood drives have been canceled in our region due to the pandemic. And the impact is a decrease in our blood supply. So we're proposing a challenge, a district challenge. Some dates proposed, nothing is set yet. This is just a proposal that we perhaps do it in July and August. The summer months are always even more challenging because we typically don't have the schools. A lot of the younger people who typically donate throughout the year that now we don't have in most areas because there are no high schools. Some schools are not having in-person classes. Everything is happening by Zoom. And so we're not able to go back to many of the schools right now. So the proposal for the challenge is that it could be during the months of July and August. Vitalent provides all the marketing materials. And the good news is that we have a representative in every area of our district. I can easily provide the contact information for each of these representatives. And I want to point out that the goal for this challenge is obviously to collect the blood that we need for our local patients, but also to promote education awareness about the importance of donating blood. All of us remember, during the toughest part of the pandemic, how important it became to donate that the plasma of people who had COVID that now carry the antibodies and proved that helped a lot of people recover quicker. So a lot of importance, a lot of awareness is required. Wanted to share something that you may already know. There is a Rotary's action group for blood donation. So Rotary has always been involved around the world in this blood donation programs. And so the Rotary Action Group Blood Donation aims to promote blood donations worldwide and to encourage Rotary clubs to organize blood drives in their communities. I wanted to put some pictures here of what has happened in our area. Here we have Jimmy Malver, Assistant Governor Jimmy, who is a multi-gallon blood donor, giving blood at one of our local blood drives in El Paso. Down here, we can see the El Paso Rotary Club recently organized a blood drive in our center. And I'm just sharing a poster here that I found on Google of the Rotary Club Albuquerque Metro hosting a blood drive in May. Rotary can be, Rotarians can be donors or can be ambassadors to promote blood donation. I took this picture off of the Facebook page with Rotary, My Blood for Others. And finally, this blood drop representing life for many people who need blood. Donate blood now. We are adhering to all of the CDC and local health offices guidelines to continue with social distancing, or we're separating chairs, we're separating beds. We are still requiring people to wear masks during their donation. And we are sanitizing everything after every donor. You can only imagine the bed, the pans that you touch. I mean, we make it as safer can be to make the process safe for the donors and for our staff. And so how do we do this? You know, in case that this is something we want to move forward, we could start setting up a number of blood drives. And perhaps the way that we would do it, Governor Sonny, is we could put a link on maybe on the district website with my contact information. And here with us, and I don't know if she connected with Fred Ossie Levy, who is the senior manager for the Albuquerque and all of the northern New Mexico. There she is. She's also going to be adding a few words to the program. But it could be a number of blood drives, could be as small as 15 donors. A blood drive could be inside a building, or we can bring our blood mobile. During the summer, it's better to go inside because those buses, as you have seen them, they're not, sometimes they're a little old, and during the summer months, some of them have broken down. Blood drives could be 3 to 4 hour blood drives. And we ask that you consider inviting in family, friends, and the community in general. As far as incentive awards, it's not something that we have really determined. It's something that is still up for discussion. Ossie, I would like you to add a few comments to this presentation, if you may, please. I am going to stop sharing and then just come back to the final slide. You want to introduce yourself and then go ahead and comment.
Good morning, Rotarians. Thank you for having us. So we are so very excited to have this opportunity for you guys to assist us with our Summer Saves Lives. So one of the things is, I know in New Mexico, we've been very, very, very active in conducting blood drives, and we already have Del Norte coming in June, and we have Metro, as you guys have known, is coming on May 11th. So with that being said, we wanted to have our challenge right now with Sonny being the governor, and I know Bob is coming up and being inducted in July. So we are actually wanting to do another challenge for the next president. So we both Mr. Brad Bryant here and I had communicated that. So anybody who's going to be doing the blood drive coming up May and June should be eligible the end of August and into September, which kind of actually will bring everything nicely to allow us to keep everybody on the same page. Now, the understanding here is we know that we discussed possibility of doing something and an incentive on our end, but I know that you guys also honor specific individuals when they are conducting a community service. So that will be up to you guys, and then we can incorporate that into our Summer Safe Lives Challenge. It's very easy to run a blood drive. We will be with you every step of the way. I like the idea of going through July through August and kind of figuring that out, because that's usually our lowest time to conduct blood drives, especially now that everything is opening up after the pandemic. So we're going to see people going out of town. We're going to see people not being so invested in our community service per se. So we really need individuals, and we need organizations to allow us to conduct these blood drives, so we are saving lives. Just because we are going and opening up in our opportunity through our states does not mean that accidents, individuals with cancer, individuals that are ill are not going to be receiving a blood supply. So we are counting on individuals like you in our community to help us and to conduct an opportunity where we are able to save lives. So I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, for actually continuously supporting us in New Mexico. And New Mexico has done really amazing with our Rotarians, and hopefully we can see the same opportunity throughout the district. Thank you so much. Any questions?
Claudia, why don't you go ahead and ask your question?
Thank you for the presentation. I see this as an opportunity for small clubs to get together and have a day of an event. I'm in Santa Fe, and I'm inviting right now Del Sur and Santa Fe to pick a day and let's do it. I think definitely this is an opportunity for all these tiny groups to know each other and to do an event like this. My second question is, Martin, if you can give us, obviously the contact person that we'll have here in Santa Fe to get this going. And the third is, I lived in England, and I personally know that I cannot give blood. It was at the time of the mad cow disease that was in England happening. So do you have a site where they say who can or cannot donate blood?
We definitely have eligibility process. So we will give, once we conduct the and set up the blood drives, you'll get the eligibility, you will get some of the health history and so on. I too was in England the same time through the mad cow disease. So I'm still ineligible, but now where things are changing. So there's a process that we also can send individuals that they can go ahead and go through the checkpoints. So we are able to conduct and make sure that individuals are coming, can donate, but also if you cannot donate, you always can bring somebody else to donate for you. And that kind of creates a community essentially that supports us all and make sure that we are doing what we need to do.
Okay, we have a couple more people with their hand raised. Let's go with Miguel and then Ryan, please.
Yes, hi, Martin, just have a question. Due to the COVID last year, based on your numbers, what was the shortage last year compared to previous year? Because I understand we had a big shortage, people donated. And what will be also the market value for a gallon of blood donated? Thank you.
Hi, Miguel. So, so we lost about in El Paso in southern New Mexico, Miguel, 60% of the blood comes from high schools and universities, colleges. And so that's about the reduction. 60% of a blood supply was cut as soon as the pandemic began. And so we started relying on small blood drives, small businesses, community blood drives. You would see us parked outside of Albertson stores, Walmart stores. I mean, blood drives that we call blood drives that are not the same as a typical high school where we normally get 100 kids donate like nothing. We were now collecting 9 units, 10 units outside of a movie theater. And so, and then I'm not sure I understand your second question, Miguel. You said the value of blood?
Yes, for example, sometimes I had somebody who recently who passed away of COVID, and then we was at the hospital. I know they provided the blood, but we needed to buy something for somebody else to bring it because it was a very specific. So do this have market value for the gallon or something like that, or no?
Well, so blood itself has no cost. Blood it has no value. There is a cost associated with having the blood available, which means pay for all the testing, the processing of the blood. And so depending on the product, it could be a unit of red cell, it could be some platelets, it could be plasma. We are a non-for-profit organization, Miguel. And so we are funded by the fee that we recover from the hospitals. And so that's how we operate. So it depends on the product. There is a special value to it.
Okay, thank you, Martin. Appreciate it. Good job.
Okay, Miguel.
Okay, Ryan, go ahead, and then we'll take a break.
Jeff, I would like, I'm sorry, go ahead, Ryan.
Oh, Martine, go ahead.
No, I'll take the question, and then I would like to share the last slide that has my email, Jeff, and Aussie's email. So that if anybody wants to contact us, and then I don't know if Governor Sonny or Bob would like to say some final words about, I know that they're supporting this initiative, and then we can go to break if that's possible, Jeff.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, Ryan, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so I love how our Rotary has people bring and challenge people to do stuff. And I would just mention to clubs, as you're thinking about doing a challenge, gay men weren't allowed to do blood donations till 2015. And then we had a 1-year ban starting in 2015 that you had to be abstinent. And then we had, during COVID, it changed to 3 months. So I loved how the person said a minute ago, bring someone else that can do that. But I know in a Rotary, a lot of members want to keep people involved, and that's what I love about Rotary. And I would just, somebody might be ineligible to donate blood and you don't even know it. So just think about that as we're talking about keeping members, that might make someone really uncomfortable in your club. If a bunch of people are like, hey, Ryan, are you going to go donate blood this weekend? So just kind of think about that as your club.
Thank you, Ryan.
And that's not their fault. That's the FDA, right? So that don't think this is blood center's fault at all.
Yeah, we have very strict guidelines from the FDA about who can and who cannot donate. Like they were just mentioning people who lived in Europe, the mad cow disease. I mean, there are several restrictions that we must always follow those guidelines to assure that the blood supply is safe for everybody. So I will share the last slide, and this is how we will finish our presentation. Can you see it, Jeff?
Yes.
Okay, so we want to thank you for your time and for forever impacting the lives of others by giving blood. My email address is mgomez@vitalent.org. I cover the El Paso and southern New Mexico up to Alamogordo. I wish I had Ruidoso so that I could go to the casinos, but I don't do Ruidoso. And then Aussie is alevy@vitalent.org. And do you want to mention your territory, Aussie, what you cover?
My territory is all the way from Doña Ana, all the way north to Trinidad. I cover the east and the west, all the way to Grants and Gallup, all the way to Utah, the Four Corners, and I touch Colorado. So we have a lot of territory and a lot of clubs to cover. And again, I'm going to say that we have continuously have been very, very successful in the New Mexico area. I'm going to challenge the district to come as close to what New Mexico does continuously. But I also am very lucky to have this guy with me here who assists me continuously and is always on me. And I have amazing recruiters. So we are ready to go, whatever is necessary. And I know that Martin will be really good at doing what he needs to do. And again, I'm going to challenge Martin to see to come as close to what we do here in New Mexico. So And then we have also West Texas. So Brandon Baker is actually the manager over in West Texas in Lubbock. He sits in Lubbock. So we actually have done Rotary drives up there. So he's also can be contacted. And if anybody needs that information, we can send that to you guys. We also do the McAllen area. So we are literally everywhere. So I'm actually kind of looking forward to the challenge, not only from a district perspective, but also from a Vitalin perspective, to see what we can bring onto the shelves this summer. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Elsie. And with that, Jeff, I conclude my presentation. I thank the district for allowing me the opportunity to present this morning.
Sunny or Bob, was there anything that you wanted to add before we take a break?
I would like to thank Martine and Ossie for the presentation and for the assistance in making this available to us. Rotary makes a difference all the time. We've done this in the past. The need is greater than ever. I say, let's do this. And we'll look forward to hearing from both of you. Bob, do you want to add anything?
Yes, on behalf of District 5520, Sonny and I are going to accept this challenge. We're going to put a challenge out to the clubs. We're going to call this the Governor's Challenge. The specifics and the dates of the time frame that we're going to have this challenge go on throughout our district is we're still working on that. We will have some tangible incentives for exceptional participation by clubs. And so more to come, but I'm looking forward to this. I'm really excited. Unfortunately, I'm one of those that cannot give, but I'm going to work hard to enable us to have a wonderful challenge. So thank you.
Arturo, real quick.
Yes, thank you, Jeff. Real fast. Sorry for interruption. It was one of the things that I wanted to ask all the clubs is if you can please share the information about the blood drives that we posted on our. So that way we can get more people to donate. I know Albuquerque Metro is having one. But if all the Albuquerque clubs help us spread the word, it will be a lot easier to have a reach. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Arturo, and everyone. So we're going to take a break. We'll reconvene at 10. When we reconvene, we'll go over how the breakout rooms are going to work. That'll just take a few minutes. So we will reconvene at 10 o'clock. Thank you.